mangy dogs, swab the decks and hoist the sails. The guns on board be needing some proper manning. Pieces of 8 and a fine wench on your arm, if your work be not too shoddy. Careful not to flounder too badly, though, or you may have to dance the hempen jig as we see you to Davy Jones. Exactly, my boy. On with the show.
Welcome, everybody, friends, folks, foes, and fellow pirate mateys, to our latest live streaming edition of Pirate Radio Podcast. It's episode number 366. How's that for all you numerology fans? Do the math on that one. With Jungian author Scott D. Smith. If you say that really quickly, I notice it's Scotty Smith, so you can have some fun with that if you choose to. We'll get into his bio here momentarily. In the meantime, let us remind you that, of course, as always, myself, the show's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder, and WPRPN.com is the website we will direct your attention to. Sign up is free. All you simply need is a username, password, and email address. If you like to support what we do, liking, commenting, sharing, remembering to hit subscription notification buttons wherever you happen to find them across social media is what helps us to beat the algorithm, if you care to put it that way. Do our best in beating the algorithm, and it's been a real struggle, as regular listeners will know. A whole multitude of fronts. So Pirate One Radio at protonmail.com is our main email address. If you have any PayPal donations, show suggestions, or guest ideas, we do have Pirate Booty available via primarily galacticfire.com. T-shirts, coffee mugs, and the like. We also are open to any digital support people like to send our way. And half of everything goes directly back to charity. Hey, who else out there across social media talks about this sort of thing? Or not just talks about it, but embraces it and promotes it, challenging all other live streamers and social media personalities to, consider following suit. Hashtag WWRHD, what would Robin Hood do? So I think that about covers it for now. We're not live streaming this show. It is worth noting, having some technical issues on the OBS front. We haven't run into this in a long while. No idea why it would suddenly we'd find ourselves suddenly having to deal with this when it up till now had really not been an issue. So, but we are going to, I think, be able to present to you a pretty decent quality, largely Carl Jung themed conversation with our guest Scott Smith. So, who himself is a writer, Jungian life coach, and dedicated volunteer with YMCA's outreach programs for aging seniors. Since 2019, he has moderated the Carl Jung and Creative Bridge Facebook group, fostering community and dialogue around Jungian ideas. Further roles in his diverse career have included an IT executive, Dale Carnegie Graduate Assistant, technical writer, mental health crisis line worker, and professional songwriter. Being Guided, Lessons from Your Inner Beloved, or Inner Beloved, by Scott D. Smith, is available worldwide. Ask your local bookstore to order it by ISBN, or find it through major international sites like bookshop.org, or Waterstones, in addition to all other major U.S. platforms. Scott lives in Phoenix, Arizona, with his wife of 35 plus years and their two Bengal cats. His inner beloved, Uncle Max, was the inspiration for this book. So, welcome, Scott. Thank you for taking the time, making the effort. We've got the show off and running here. Just as I alluded to earlier, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to connect with our wider listening audience in real live time. How's Phoenix treating you this?
It's it's a little warm. It's a little bit warm right now. It's about 105, but and during the day, so we're keeping the air conditioners running. Thanks for asking.
All right. Well, it's interesting. We just had a good friend of ours relocate from out of Phoenix down to Fort Worth, Texas, as a matter of fact. Sonia Galactic. So I'm not sure what part of the city she lived in, but she's been someone that's been in our orbit essentially for a number of years now, and very colorful character to say the least. Alice Cooper lives in Phoenix as well, does he not?
He does. He
All
does. We
right.
went and saw him recently. Yes.
Have you ever crossed paths with Alice?
No, we went to one of he used to have a place, a kind of a brew pub place and chicken wings place. It was really huge downtown. And we went there on hopes of seeing him, but he, alas, was not there. So we went and saw him recently in a concert.
Okay. All right. Have you been fans of his music for?
I've been a fan of his since, yeah, since School's Out and all that stuff
Mm-hmm.
back in the what, 70s or 80s. Yeah,
Right on. So, and
yeah,
that's interesting too, because he self-identifies as a Christian, has done so, I guess, for a good many years, which surprises a lot of people because of the sort of music that he plays, and I think that kind of dovetails quite nicely into this whole business regarding the Jungian shadow, um, which you had brought up in the pre-interview end of things. Something you're hoping to get a little more into as the conversation unfolds
yeah.
here.
I'm also a Christian Episcopalian myself, and but you find that sometimes you need a little bit more. It can be a little bit too happy joy with that, and so you try to find some balance, try to work with your soul. And Alice does a good job of accessing his darker side. I think mostly for entertainment. Of course, he and his wife are still doing an onstage act to kind of act out some of these I don't know, darker fantasies. And I think he's a lot of fun, and he's very funny. If you've ever listened to his radio show, he's a hell of a entertainer. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot that he does have a podcast as well. Is that right?
Mhm.
Or okay,
It's a
so
radio show, I think, yeah.
okay. Well, we'll have to check that out. I remember hearing about that. So I've always and he hosts. Is it musically oriented, or is it a conversation?
I when I listen to it, my wife's a big fan, and she says that he's broadcast he's, affiliated out with various radio stations that are mostly rock and 80s and 90s and stuff and like that. And so he does a radio show and he kinda DJs it. He tells little stories about, "Oh, I remember when I met Led Zeppelin, or I went on stage with so and so," and he drops a lot of names and is funny, very funny. Probably one of the funniest guys in rock. So
His Elvis
it's,
story is pretty cool as well too. When he, I'm not
yeah.
sure. Have you heard that one?
No, I have not.
Oh, you have to. You'll come across it one day. I'm sure you can look around for it if you're so inclined. But Elvis was a big karate guy, as most people probably know, and I think what he did, he handed. He's like, yeah, he's like, yeah. So you're the snake guy, and he handed it. It's like he handed him his revolver. He's like, here, take it. And it's like, what? So he took the gun. He's like, and he's holding it, talking about, am I going to be the guy that kills Elvis, or what's going on here? And before he knew what was happening, he was down on the floor on his back. Elvis had disarmed him, and
Karate.
he'd been karateed by Elvis. That's right. So it doesn't get more cool than that. So life memories.
That's a good one.
Yep. But so here we are. Let's hear a little bit more. If you know, is there anything in the introduction into things as far as your bio and backstory that we didn't cover, which you think might be important to?
So, I think that I've been reading Jung since I was a kid. I don't know if you remember the old band, The Police,
Oh
back in
yeah,
the 80s, 70s and 80s, but their very last band that they did before they broke up, was the Synchronicity
yeah,
album.
yeah,
And, Synchronicity turned out to be one of Carl Jung's most sophisticated, ideas. And I listened to the album, and I think they played Synchronicity 2 as a hit on the radio, and so I went out and bought a copy of that, and it was, I didn't realize that Jung was a major psychotherapist, and that his audience was really not me. It was really his fellow psychotherapists, and so it was very difficult to understand what it meant. But I just decided that this was my guy, and I was gonna try to figure out what it meant. And so I spent the last 40 years reading through his stuff, and people would know me as the psychology guy, even though I was not doing psychology. I was working in the information technology and making a living. And um, and so about 10 years ago or so, about the time I moved to um, Phoenix, I got involved in being the administrator of this Creative Bridge thing on Facebook, which is a really big. It's about 250,000 members, and I was fortunate enough to know enough about this to be an admin in the group, and I started holding these talks about, and we would read various books, but we tried to stay away from the Carl Jung itself because it's very highly academic and a little hard to understand and for people, and so nobody would show up for the meetings if it was, if you were talking about his stuff because they couldn't, people are embarrassed, they can't figure out what he's saying. So we would read something that was a little bit more down to earth, and somebody that had studied with him, or somebody who was one of his therapists and so forth. And over the years, I kind of got a following, and so one day I said, well, I'm getting ready to retire, and maybe I should start thinking about writing a book. I feel like I'm being guided from within. I always felt this way. I wonder if other people would feel that way. And so I started writing my book, and about two drafts in, I had a dream, and my old uncle Max came to me. Jung had his own thing that came to him and inspired him, and so my inner beloved came to me and said, you need to change the focus of this book to be guided. And so I changed the focus of the book, and as people have been telling me, and as Amazon reviews will reveal, it's a five-star book. It's extremely well written, if I do say so myself. Um, and I'm getting some great reaction, and I'm starting to go out there and plug the book, as they say, and just sort of see what happens. It's been a soulful experience for me, and I really do appreciate you talking to me for a while.
All right. Uh, uh, so I'm not sure when it was exactly that, because it seems Young has become a little more popularized since the
Mhm.
time that you first, you know, became, came to know him essentially on some level. Although then again, maybe this
Mhm.
like even go back to the '60s, perhaps psychedelic '60s with, because
Yeah, the
Alan
'60s was a big
Watts
time. Yeah.
would refer to him
He
on
he he
occasion.
published a book,
Huxley.
before he died, called Symbols of Man, which influenced the United States advertising, industry,
Oh yeah,
because it was about symbols, and the advertising people said, "Oh, this is great,
right.
and we should use symbols." Coke and Disney and all these big companies said, "We need to make icons out of these things." And so that was really big in the '60s, and of course, '60s was also the psychedelic era, and so people were experimenting with things. Whether or not they were safe is another matter, but,
Yeah.
and then, of course, I picked it up in the '80s with, Sting picked it, was interested in Jung, but it got much more popular, I think in the last 15, 20 years. I think it's actually you guys broadcast out of Seoul, Korea, right?
Yep, that's where I'm based
And
at.
so the thing that happened most recently that was very significant for Jung was that Murray Stein's Map of the Soul influenced BTS, and they
Oh,
made worldwide news with that.
no kidding. So they've
So
they've
Map of
they,
the Soul
they've
is directly from Murray Stein's Jungian book that he wrote for academia.
so come again. The connection, the angle there is one or two of the band members, maybe all of them have read this book. Or?
At least 2 of them, I don't know the details, but I did listen to it at one point. I knew this, and now I've forgotten, but a couple of them were really interested, and, they're so super famous that, as you know, the pressure that's on these people, it's a pressure
Mm-hmm.
cooker for people who are
Mm-hmm.
famous, and you cannot always handle the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
You think you wanna be famous, and then wham, you're famous, and you can't deal with it, and there's too much pressure, and so these guys kinda went spiritual, and one of them picked up a copy of Murray Stein's Map of the Soul, which is an academic book that at his university where he wrote it, to help understand and review Jung's information his psychology.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
and so they wrote a whole album based on that concept.
really
Yeah, it's very, very
okay. Well,
interesting.
I'll tell you what, this is great. Thank you so much. So, I'm going to pass this on to my students. I'm going to look into it more deeply here as well. This is the sort of content my students here love, whether they're
Mhm,
total BTS fans or not. Not all Koreans are. The most
mm-mm.
like them, but some, just some have their other more favorite K-pop
Yeah.
groups or what have you. But
Young resonates more in the East than it does in the West because he
really,
based a lot of what he was doing on the Tao Te Ching, which is Lao Tzu's, I think it's 2,000 years old or whatever.
yeah.
And it's also very related to the I Ching, which is one of those
Hmm.
oracle systems, where you cast the dice and you get your reading and stuff. It's a little bit more accurate than it uses synchronicity
I
to get your reading.
I was going to
It's very
ask you
cool.
about that along with this business of because I looked at the outline. I did a quick overview of your book and picked up on
Mhm,
gleaned some of the main points and whatnot, and was struck by the business essentially making friends with oneself rather than
right?
being at war, forever at war internally. That was one of the
Mhm,
first things that my Buddhist teachers kind of laid out there and said, look, if you if you want to make any progress here, you got to take a look at this and stop with the ego kind of monkey mind as it's known,
mhm.
playing these games and you're constantly beating up on yourself.
Yeah.
So I take that sword. Jesus came with a sword, and I look at it. I'd like
Mm,
to look at it because I don't think he killed too many people, literally. But it's like in the Buddhist tradition, you're taking it to cut through the fetters of ignorance and delusion.
mhm,
That's what it's used for. So I like to visualize that often myself with my own practice. But uh, there's that end of things. There's the I Ching that really resonated as well, and the Wilhelm
mhm.
Baines. You might not know this. Maybe I, I don't know. We'll see. I
Oh,
guess. But
you mean the golden flower?
uh, no, no. That was no, no. Hang on just a second. Wilhelm Baines, the first edition of the I Ching that was made its way
That's the one. That's the one.
into
Yep.
English, and he wrote the introduction to it. He came up
Yes,
with
that's it.
the
Yep.
cauldron, I guess, was the cauldron, which was, I think it was either which way it was turned. You know about the moving lines, of course, if it's
Mhm.
moving lines or not, sixes and nines essentially. Was that what Hendrix was going on about that song? If six was a
6s and
nine.
9s are always interesting.
Well, and what we got here with this show, it's interesting. This happens time and again, but yeah, with 366 is our show. So hey, once again, do the math on that. We live
Mhm,
we're 303 actually here. We're our little home base essentially via
mhm,
building 303 and uh, apartment 303. So that's kind of noteworthy. It would seem for those that are take art.
Numerology, yeah.
Yeah, that reckon the numbers to be of
Mhm.
some
I
significance.
was
What?
talking to a friend of mine about numerology, and she
Hmm.
said, "Why didn't you include that in the book?" And I said, "Well,
Right.
everybody has their different numbers. I think the one that resonates the most with Jung was 12, and that moves across every tradition in human beings. The astrology signs, the 12. The 12 is also in Chinese. You know, the lion and the hare and all of
Mm.
that. But it's also in of course in Western. And
M-
so 12 comes up a lot, and it's related
music.
to the constellations.
Music, okay, and yeah, sure, and music as well. Correct. 5, 7, fifth fret, seventh fret, 12th fret. There you go. It's like
Yeah,
what's that all about? So
yeah.
yeah,
Human beings have
Pythagoras.
been looking into the stars for millennia. So there they are.
Oh God. So it's incredible. How about that? But and Jung's last book. I actually have a Jungian friend. Maybe we can arrange an interview with him, Robert Morningstar. He's very heavily into Jung as well,
Mhm.
much more uh, astute than myself and well read. But the last book that he ever wrote in, I think it was 1961. Do you know what that was?
I thought it was The Man and His Symbols.
No, no, I don't. Or last book he wrote, or last book that was published, but last book
Published.
attributed to him essentially was, uh, what I don't know the exact title, Flying Saucers as
Oh, that was one of
projections.
his last books. Yes, it was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I read
Look,
that.
yeah, look where we are now too with the UFO files, and I mean, have you ever seen something I mean, you keep your eyes to the sky. Have you ever seen something you couldn't quite explain?
Sure, and when I was a kid, I did see things that I couldn't explain, and I think one of the reasons I was interested in Jung was because that book that you mentioned, I picked that up very early on when I was a kid and read through it, and he talked about that. He said, I cannot tell you if the aliens are out there, but I can tell you that there is a mystery within, and the symbols of the unconscious manifest themselves as things of the unknown, and so for some people who are scientific, they look to the stars and they see something mysterious, and that's the way it manifests itself from the unconscious. He says, "That I know is real because I see my patients and they come in and they say, 'This happened to me.'" And he says, of course, if something happens to one of his clients, it's real. Whether it's real for other people is another matter, but UFOs are a symbol of the unconscious according to Jung. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I still don't know what to make of the whole thing. Just for me, it's a question of, I suppose, meditating on it all and seeing where it leads.
Yeah.
But there are just too many, like with ghosts. I guess is
Mhm.
another example, or Bigfoot. Even
Yeah.
though there's a lot of goofy. I was just watching a Bigfoot video, or actually two of them last
Yeah.
night on YouTube, and they didn't convince me. There's like the little odds, and it's like, no, I'm not buying it. I've got a pretty decent, I think, large, BS detector, and yeah, and
Seems a
even
little BS, huh? Yeah.
yeah, and even the UFO videos. I mean, come on, we're living in a day. Oh, sorry, I just
Well,
mentioned you
have
about
you ever
the
listened to, are you familiar with Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist?
right.
Um, he, um, he just says, "We've got 8 billion people, we've got 8 billion cell phones, and no aliens yet." So that tells you something.
Well, well, it could be. I think what did you remember Star Trek? Of course, the Prime
Yeah.
Directive.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, it could be, right? Could be.
Well, that's why. Like, look at how the government is handling disclosure right now. They're
Mhm.
very. It's a hot potato. It's a hot issue, and Trump
Yeah.
is taking steps in this area. Where it's all going to lead to is anybody's guess, but there's
Yeah.
just too many reports. There's just too many
Yeah.
too people look, the way I see it is either people are um either they're lying, secondly
Mhm.
they're crazy, or thirdly they've seen something that they can't
Yeah.
explain.
Yeah.
It,
You want me to tell you what my theory is?
go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
Since we haven't actually seen any bodies or any aliens themselves, and deGrasse Tyson and all these astrophysicists say, it's too far away. There's no way for them to get here with the speed of light. It's too big. The universe is too big. But it certainly could be what you call, if we evolved for another 2,000 years, and I think where we've got these drones, that fly around, and if you made a drone, um, and you had a technology that was advanced by 1,000,000 years, you could probably send one to another star, and you could observe. And so I think that we're being observed.
Right. Yeah. Some people even have theorized that it's uh, it's us essentially returning in time, or maybe going back to the future.
Oh, it could
Or
be us? Yeah, mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's and this is something that I can't get my head, a concept I can't get my head entirely wrapped around. Uh, Presently, but when I was 7 years old, there's only two times I remember this happening. Kind of like the way you hear
Mhm.
these stories about Socrates being frozen and sort of
Mhm.
just unable to move because there seemed to be some almost otherworldly force that was holding him in place for whatever reason. I was just so I guess you could say, enraptured, and caught up in and deeply reflecting upon at the end of my driveway as a kid of about 7 or 8. This it all seemed to click and come together that
Mhm.
the that we were the aliens, essentially. They were us. And I
Mhm.
guess in that if you look at it in the sense of sing what is it, the 0 point energy and eastern non-duality, time and space, the big bang. It
Yeah.
all was one at
I could talk about the "We Are the Aliens" thing a little bit
Oh,
because,
go ahead. Yes, by all
Jung
means.
was very much into, he talked about the rhizome and how people are like the plants, the rhizome, the bean, and it comes up through the ground, and if you look below, the roots connect to everything. And he was of the opinion that we are all that human beings are a lot like that. We all have a collective unconscious. And it's individual, of course. Each person has their own brain, essentially. And we are all connected together. But the collective unconscious is kind of hooking us together, and we are part of nature. And so the problem with We Are the Aliens is that we're the only ones that really have a very advanced cerebral cortex. And somewhere in the book, I think it's in the preface, I talk about the fact that the limbic system, the ancient brain that is part of the inner beloved concept that I have, that was the theorized part that Carl Jung talked about, called the mana personalities. And I think one of the images that you had taken from some of the some of the images I sent you earlier, it talks about, so the human beings have two parts to themselves. We have this ancient brain, which is very creative. It sings, it breathes, it's creative, and then we have this cerebral cortex that's more organized and more recent. But the problem is, of course, is that we've become so logical and we overthink things. And everybody knows people that have lost touch with themselves, and this ultra ancient part of themselves that is more free and flowing, like the Tao Te Ching and synchronicity. And so we are the aliens. We are the aliens because we've stepped away from nature. And that is part of what the book is trying to do, is to get you back in touch with yourself. If I get technical, I could say, well, that's the individuation process. If I want to take it a little bit less technical term, maybe we would call it getting in a flow with the Tao, or finding your synchronicity, getting self-aware, using some meditation, and finding a space that's somewhere halfway in between. The yin yang, is the black and the white, and the white and the black. And the two of them together, the more balanced you are, the more likely you are to have a free-flowing existence, that is not necessarily happy, but it's more in the moment, and there's more ability to be creative. There's even a whole chapter on creativity because I'm pretty creative. I wrote this book.
Well, and man, I tell you, we're both musicians. You probably didn't know that
Mhm.
about myself. You're more accomplished and recognized. Congratulations. You can and lay out whatever, because you've been leading force in a number of projects over the years.
True.
So it'd be great to hear more about that. But attunement, uh, Tesla, as an example, truth
Hmm.
and frequency and vibration. That was, it
Yeah.
seems, what he said. The bottom line, if you want to find the bottom line, that the reality of the universe is can be found in true in frequency and vibration.
Right.
And also, I think, speaking where numbers came up earlier, 369, wasn't that what he was all about? It was it I or I could be,
I
yeah,
don't. I
369.
haven't. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, can't see, but that's okay.
Um.
You're going off video. That's
Yeah,
okay.
the video's off, but that's okay. So Tesla, I haven't studied Tesla, but I had a client last year about this time while I was traveling, and she was into the karma and the vibration things. And of course, when you're working with someone, then you don't fully understand where they're coming from. What you do, Jung says and Freud says, you just accept their reality and you say yes, and you walk with them in their reality. And so the karmas and the vibration thing is something that highly intuitive people are really into, and they feel it even more than you and I feel it. I'm an artist and a musician, and so are you. But these people, Tesla, and was a genius. And so folks like that, they feel everything, and they almost overconnect, which I think can be a problem. I think that was a problem for people like Nietzsche and for Tesla, that he's overconnected. Everything meant everything, which is a kind of a borderline, schizophrenic situation. But as a result of these kinds of folks, you know that this is the connection. That is the Tao. The connecting, everything is connected, is the Tao, and that is what synchronicity is: noticing the connections. And individuation is making the connections between your inner and outer self. That's what it means.
The anima and the animus.
That's right.
I suppose you can flesh that out a little more if you're
I had a
fine.
client a couple of years ago when I was um, that had overindulged themselves in their. It was a man, so it was his anima, it was the woman within, and he was really into it, but he didn't know a lot, and so he did something that is a kind of a classic mistake, and I warn people against that in the book, is that you can't really dive too deep on that for too long. You've got to stay out. You got to maybe 20 or 30 minutes a day is fine, but hours and hours and hours spent in inner dialogue with your inner man or woman is going to be. It's going to cause what they call inflation, or you. It becomes toxic, just like
Hmm.
taking too much aspirin or anything. It's a little bit too much. And so the warning against this sort of thing is to just kind of a little dabble, do you, for that sort of interaction with yourself.
So, you were Dark Night of the Soul. You referenced just a brief while
Mhm.
ago how Nietzsche, and even, I'm not sure. I don't know if Tesla had a nervous breakdown, but Nietzsche,
Definitely.
it could have been, like, went off the rails. How much of that was uh, the result of his, was it gonorrhea that he contracted, some sort
Could have
of,
been. Yeah, it might
or
have been an STD. Yeah,
yeah,
it
that
might have
may,
been.
yeah, affected
I
his.
think Scott Joplin had the same problem, the guy that wrote The Entertainer. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
that can really mess you up.
ouch. So, but yeah, the dark night of the soul. And well, how about
Yeah, that's
how
really.
about and that and authenticity as well. And then I've got another
Mhm.
point I'd like to bring up too.
Go
I
ahead.
just remembered. So,
Well,
wasn't get did I can't exactly recall. Did Young ever, um did he ever offer any opinion himself on this business of authenticity? Was that something that
So
he?
so I'll take it one at a time.
Sure.
The question was about authenticity, and so that's one of the cornerstones of Jung, because he was very into the Eastern stuff, and the Eastern stuff. The whole point of the Eastern Tao Te Ching and so forth is to be one with your authentic self, to become authentic, and so. part of his individuation process, it bled over into the 12 steps of Alcoholic Anonymous. And of course, we know that alcoholics and anybody who's an addict is not perfect. And so coming into authenticity is related to the dark night of the soul, because in order to be authentic, you're going to have to accept yourself, warts and all. And unfortunately, no one is particularly good. We hide the things that are wrong with us. We don't talk about them. Some people who act out, of course, end up going to jail and do terrible things. We've got people in politics that do terrible things, and they kind of are a personification of the shadow. And how that works, they kind of symbolize our dark side of the show. It's almost like watching a horror movie. Sometimes these people are a little out there, and but we all have that within us. And what Jung pointed out was that we project things onto each other. And so if you want to see somebody, I don't want to get too political, so I'll just say, let's imagine for a moment that you have a world leader who everything that is wrong with them, they point at you and say, that's your fault. you know that's projection. And so they're not being authentic. They're not owning it. And of course, if you want to be a well-balanced person, you need to own your shadow and make peace with the fact that you're not perfect any more than anyone else is. And just because you're a goody two shoes and you've never been arrested does not mean that you haven't got a dark side.
Right.
And in fact, the pirate theme that you have
Yes.
is an outreach of that. We talked about this in the pre-show, that the pirate theme is really attracts me because it tells me that you guys are kind of already in touch with it. You're doing a kind of a subversive radio thing that's very cool, and it allows you to say things that other people won't say and do things that what people won't do, and talk about subjects that like this one that are really out there and pretty interesting. And so the dark night of the soul and the authenticity work together to create your whole self. The yin and the yang come together in a union as you become more self-aware and you do some of the work that is mentioned in the book. And then there's another book I'm writing on 12-step using the Tao Te Ching as well, where you help addicts come to a relationship with themselves and to admit, oh yeah, I'm a drunk. Yep, I've done these horrible things. I'm starting to own it. I know it was me. And so that's the healthy attitude, is to admit it and to do the work, as they say, do the work of individuation to come into a relationship with yourself.
So, what are the lessons then from your inner beloved? What was
So
what
the
you
lesson-
what was?
so I
Mhm.
I actually went online to Amazon and bought a copy of my book so that I could answer questions like that and be able to go through it.
Okay.
And so the chapters of the book, first of all, to introduce the concept of the inner beloved, which I've already done. It's the inner part of yourself that manifests itself as a character. It may be your anima, animus, or it may be some other character. For Jung, it was a kind of an angel character. For me, it was my old Uncle Max, who's kind of an old wise man. The second chapter is about making an invitation to your inner beloved. So called second chapter is called making an invitation. And you say a prayer to yourself, not a religious prayer. You say a prayer to yourself and you kind of enter into yourself, and you close your eyes and you light a candle and you close your eyes and you ask for help, or you ask for to be guided. And the third chapter is kind of based on Robert Johnson, one of the proteges of Jung, who wrote a book about inner work. And so this is a chapter about dreaming and the symbolism of dreaming, and how dreaming is kind of connected to synchronicity, and how to interpret dreams, how to get access to dreams, how to ask your inner beloved for permission to remember a dream and to write it down, and various ways to interpret those dreams. The fourth chapter is using active imagination, which I kind of alluded to when I talked about making an invitation. If you make an invitation, that means that there is something that is inviting you, or you are being invited to something. And there's a couple of great memes out there on the internet about, what if I told you that the thing that you've been waiting for has been waiting for you? And so, being guided by your imagination is a way that it's kind of Jung's answer to meditation. He says, "Oh no, the Eastern way of emptying yourself out is not the Western way. That the Western way is to be more active with your imagination and to interact with your inside self." After you've gotten into a relationship with yourself, you can then do chapter 5, which is finding your path. And path is, there's a picture of a labyrinth in the chapter, I believe. And finding your inner path, there's a couple of scripts in there that help you find your way to the path that you're on within yourself. And this is a symbolic thing. You can use a lot of different techniques by dreaming, imagination. You can do what's called IFS, parts dialogue. There's a number of techniques you can use. Oh, and also journaling. You may have heard, if you ever talk to a therapist, they'll talk to you about journaling. You can just journal to you can actually write to your inner beloved, and then he can write back to you. So that's an interesting thing to do. And
Is-
then finding your calling, chapter 6 is
Mhm.
about the workplace and how you can find your way through the workplace and be in service to humanity, which is step 12 of
Mm.
the Alcoholics Anonymous is part of Jung's thing. You know, Jung was the one who was founded AA through a letter that he sent to Bill W.
Really?
So finding your calling is finding the thing that you do in life.
That,
And then the
that's
seventh
incredible.
chapter is about relationships. And of course, we talked a little bit about being a relationship to yourself is, of course, the first thing you need to do. You can't have good relationships with others if you don't have a relationship with yourself.
Hmm.
So that's all about that. Chapter 8 is really my cup of tea, which is being creative and playful. That's about the limbic system, the ancient brain being more playful, creative, musical. It sings and it dances and it's creative. And how do you unite that with the more cerebral, more recent part of the brain that is more logical and less creative? You know, Einstein was the great symbol of that sort of thing, or Richard Feynman. You know, these great physicists, but that were also highly creative. So that's the most effective people are both intelligent, but also very creative and playful. And then finally, chapter 9 is about spirituality. And some people love to talk about spirituality and how it affects them. And of course, this whole thing, the inner beloved, is very spiritual.
Yeah, I guess it's pretty deep and profound. No doubt about that whatsoever. So, um, I'm I'm actually wondering. This is really something I've never really attempted something like what you're laying out here for us.
Mhm.
I suppose it might be worth giving a shot, seeing where it leads. It could be
Yeah.
quite beneficial.
You want me
My,
to
hmm
you want me to read one for you? You want
Oh,
me to
oh,
do one?
oh, are you talking like what, like, because you have tarot involved. You did have a chapter on tarot as well, too, correct?
There's a appendix thing that has tarot in it. I think that's right. Yeah.
But what you mean by read is just a summary synopsis.
Yeah, we could talk about, I'll tell you what I'll do. I did a thing, when I was, working on this, presentation, and I think somewhere in here, is let me see if I can find it. Give me a second. I'm gonna spin through this and see if I can find oh, here we go. Okay, so let me do this. This made a big impact when I read this to a group of people. This is called the Parable of the Overflowing Cup. It's in chapter 1. And so the first thing we do, and you don't want to do this if you're operating heavy machinery, but you first thing you do is you say a little prayer to your inner. So you say, "Oh heavenly inner self, please receive my thanks for your guidance, past, present, and future. Please accept my friendship with open arms. Please accept my apologies for my imperfections, that I may always seek balance and self-awareness in my body and soul. And now I will tell you a story, the parable of the overflowing cup. The master said, 'If you are to be my student, I must know what you are carrying.' And the student replied, 'Carrying? What do you mean, master?' And the master said, 'In life, you must always know what you are carrying. Here is my lesson. Imagine that you are walking through a crowded marketplace, carrying a cup filled to the brim. We are all carrying something, you know. Suddenly, someone bumps into you, as often happens in busy places, and the contents of your cup spill onto your clothes, onto the ground, and even onto those around you. What was inside comes out, revealing what was hidden within your cup. If your cup was filled with sweet nectar, those nearby might smile and appreciate its fragrance. But if it has contained sour vinegar or something foul, people will recoil in disgust. And so I say to you that you must learn to carry in your cup the sweet nectar of life. And so then follows a lesson on how to find what you're carrying. And I've done this exercise with a number of my clients over the years, trying to find, and sometimes they find there's nothing in their cup, which is a little disruptive, or they find something terrible in there that they're carrying around, and it can be quite enlightening.
Wow. That's, yeah, that's powerful stuff. I'm just reflecting on that here, how it applies to my psyche.
Mhm.
Is that a term? Is that Jung coined, or was that
Psyche, yes.
Freud?
I'm not sure if it was his idea, but he used it a lot. Yes, psyche.
Right. Now, and I've talked to other. We had a uh, we've had other medical experts and so forth that we've connected with over the years. One in particular, his response. He was a psychotherapist, and he essentially, and out of Los Angeles, this is so goes back a number of years now. His name escapes me, unfortunately, but uh, brilliant man nonetheless. And his re- I asked him, what his thoughts were regarding Jung, and as a psychotherapist, and he basically was of the opinion that Jung was a mystic more than
Mhm.
anything else. So, where do you stand on that whole
So I
issue?
think that Jung himself has actually kind of admitted that he was a lot of things.
I see.
And a mystic was definitely one of them because he was into the studying of the Gnostics, the Gnostics, Gnostics,
Yes.
which is very mystical. But that was in the latter part of his career. The early part of his career was founding analytical psychology, which is there are hundreds of thousands of analytical psychologists around the world, and they're considered some of the best therapists in the world. And they are not mystics, and they would tell you that Jung was a founder and a creative person, and so he founded all kinds of things, and he did found some Gnostic and mystical things that are a little hard to grasp. But I would say that the bulk of what Jung came up with was concepts of introversion and extroversion, the collective unconscious, the anima, the animus. He mapped the map of the brain that Murray Stein wrote about. There I don't think you
Synchronicity.
can
Yeah.
dismiss Young because it's just kind of like you can't dismiss cell phones because there's 8 billion of them, and you can't dismiss analytical psychology because there's hundreds of thousands of them, and there's all these people that are finding their souls being saved by the ideas of this man.
Hmm.
More than 120 years,
Sure.
since he first wrote. I
Right.
would say that, but for every you ask a psychoanalyst what they think, and you'll get one answer for every
Sure.
psychoanalyst that's out there.
I think that's a great way of putting it, actually. And the amount of, I think, his what he offered to the world, his contributions, his impact has really been a lot more positive than anything else, with helping people in their spiritual journey
Mhm.
through life, obviously, and uh, evolving rather
He
than
did.
regressing. So,
He brought the Tao Te Ching to the Western world in a way that we could handle it. Rather than emptying things out with the way the Buddha said, he uses active imagination to help us interact with our inner self. His belief was is that you could be an active participant because we're more of an egocentric society. And so he felt that that would be appropriate for the Western world. And so we've kind of absorbed some of the Eastern ideas of non-duality and so forth. And they've sort of, if you ever go to China like I've done, they've kind of absorbed some of our capitalistic system and our ego-driven system. And it's a balance. You strike a balance between the two. And there's
hmm.
nothing really wrong with that.
Yeah, in fact, we just had Buddha's birthday here in South Korea, a
Hmm.
country which is these days very, very materially driven, very
Yes.
money oriented. and success, fame, all these you know
I was in
values.
I was in Vietnam a while back,
Uh-huh.
and we were there during Christmas time and New Year's, and of course, Vietnam is like so many of those countries over there. There's not very much. There's only like 2% Christians, and we went over there, and we went out to this seafood place around at Halong Bay, and there was Santa Claus, 5'6", skin
Ah.
with a rail, and
uh,
we said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Oh well, we're here for the tourists. We, the tourists come and spend their money, and so we've got Santa Claus here."
well, I guess Santa is some sort of archetype, really, which
Yes.
Saint Nicholas is where
Hmm.
the roots go back to, all, like
Hmm.
in many ways, of course. So, and Saint Nicholas was just amazing. I mean, if the story was in any way, uh, you know, how the way it's come down to us is accurate, I guess, and what he did. They say in the Buddhist tradition, the first step on the path to wisdom is generosity. And
Right.
what did Saint Nicholas do? He acted in a very generous way to help
Right.
these young children. I think they're girls, and making their Christmas wishes come
It's a
true.
very fine tradition, and I think it's bled over into the East and the West, just like some of their ideas have bled over into ours. Yeah.
Hmm. What is the name of? Oh, and by the way, we're just going to, for those of you out there listening here, the archived edition of what we put together this week, episode 366 with Jungian author, Phoenix, Arizona based Scott D. Smith. So, and an author, among other things, author of his latest book, Being Guided: Lessons from Your Inner Beloved. Uh, and I say latest book. I'm assuming, maybe I'm wrong, uh, that you've written others. Is that right? I haven't.
Um, no, I've written a musical. I
Right.
haven't written it. That's the first book, but I am in the midst of working with a treatment plan, an addiction counseling treatment a group up in Idaho on a second book on the Tao Te Ching of recovery, adapting the 12 steps using the Tao Te Ching and somatic experiencing and some of the Vanderkolk the body heals the soul and so forth.
Okay. What was
Keeps the
the?
score.
Uh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, body keeps the score. I hate it. When you say something in a live recording, it's like, oh, I screwed up. I need to get it right.
Yeah. Well, we're just here trying our best, I guess, to do exactly that. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
this free flowing exchange of ideas and in the moment, spontaneous creation of who knows what. It's kind of fun and exciting in that sense.
It is.
Um, yeah. So, what's the name? Two things. What is the name of your Jungian group? And secondly, now I'm familiar to some extent with his role and influence in helping the I Ching make its way to a Western audience.
Hmm.
With, so we talked about earlier, the first classic Wilhelm Baines edition,
Right.
writing the introduction. But the name of your group on we got it here in the show
So,
description into things,
yeah,
and the,
about
the
9 or 10 years ago, something like that, I was in the group called the Creative Bridge. I think it's called Carl Jung and the Creative Bridge. It's on Facebook, and I think I might have invited you to get into there if you get a chance
really,
and take a look at that.
yeah.
You can. There's about 205 or 210,000 members. It's a worldwide group. It's one of those, highly
Oh, here
successful
we
groups.
go.
But
Here
yeah,
we just found it. Yeah. So,
yeah, there it is. And so if you're not in, I'm the admin, so I can get you in.
oh, now better watch out. You
No, you'll be fine.
things are gonna go
Um,
off the
but
rails for
that
sure.
group is, of course, the bigger the group, the more generic the stuff is. I'm the admin on some smaller groups that are more niche. I think the Jungian Cafe, and there's one for therapists, and there's one for accessibility for the books that I talked about in my discussion groups. But the Creative Bridge this is an interesting question. A creative bridge is a concept, and I write about this in my book. Creative bridge is the bridge. I don't know if you've ever heard of the bridge to Terabithia, but it's a piece of fiction and a movie
Heard of
and
the
a book.
Rainbow Bridge.
Yeah, it might be the same idea, but I don't know. The bridge to Terabithia is a Jungian concept. It's the creative bridge. You remember you talk about the anima and the
Hmm.
animus, and the anima and the animus are two of three things in the consciousness that people are aware of that are kind of unconscious, and then the rest of it is collective and completely unconscious. And so the bridge is the inner beloved or your anima and your animus that comes to you and makes a bridge between your ego and the collective part of yourself that's more eternal. And so the idea of this group, the Carl Jung and the creative bridge, is the creative bridge is a symbol for the connection between the conscious and the unconscious. It's the thing that allows individuation to happen.
Hmm. Uh, just scrolling down here, and we've got this up on the screen for our audience members as well.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Content
Yeah,
that the group
yeah, I know
offers.
Lawrence. He's one of the admins as
Sure.
well.
So it's today marks the 11 years of Carl Jung and the Creative Bridge. So
Very
congratulations.
good.
Hey, I was going to ask you, Freud and Jung, they were close. It was the relationship was quite
Hmm.
interesting, like a mentor type almost.
Mentor mentee. Yes.
Yeah, relationship to a point. And you find this all down through history, I guess, like with Nietzsche and Wagner, I guess, is another famous
Hmm.
example, apparently, where they were really close for a significant amount of time. And then there was a break and they went
Right.
their separate ways. So um, maybe you could actually, first things first, before getting more deeply into that aspect, that end of things, the dynamic. And they traveled together, I guess, to
They
America,
did. They
and
took a ship to the United States, I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
But there was this, well, seven sermons to the dead. That's a bit of a side
Yes.
issue. Seven sermons
Yes.
to the dead. It's like, what the heck is this? I like, hello, are you serious? So incredible, Basilides,
It
the
is.
Gnostic channeling. My God, come
Hmm.
on, you got to be kidding. But anyways, that aside, see, Jung, or Freud rather, was really freaked out by the whole, as he called it, the occult
Right.
end of things, and lift having the lid taken off.
Yeah.
What potentially could, I'm not sure why exactly, other than maybe he was something of a control freak, and and just
Well,
wanted.
every psychotherapist is a bit of a psycho, I
Yeah,
think.
well,
We are all a little crazy.
well, okay, sure, yeah, yeah. But with now the two of them met. I think it was at Freud's residence as well, too. That's the best I could determine. So there's
I think they started as a correspondence, and then they eventually agreed to meet,
right, but
and they talked for 16 hours straight because
sure,
they had a great chemistry together, and of course they had an interest in modern psychology at the time,
right,
and because Freud was the father of the study of the unconscious mind, and he was the first one to talk about dream analysis, which is still something that is done. And they had a great relationship in the early stages, and it was definitely more of a mentor mentee sort of thing because Mr. Freud was a bit of an older man, and Jung was a younger man, literally, and so they did okay until Jung started having some ideas of his own, and Jung is actually on that ship, on the trip that they took together, or one of their trips that they took together, they were analyzing each other. And Jung began to realize as he got older and more sophisticated that Freud actually was kind of a city boy. And he didn't really think much of the usefulness of the unconscious other than just kind of a wasteland for the shadow to just kind of be a bunch of junk heap. And that was his perspective. And Jung didn't think that was right, and it turned out that Freud was wrong about all that, and so they eventually he published something. I don't know which one it was, but it may have been the collective unconscious, the big book on the collective unconscious, and he broke from Freud because he just didn't think that Freud was on the right track with his sexual theory. and the
Exclusive.
sexual
It was
theory.
just an overly exclusive sexual focus.
The guy was a Victorian age man. He was a totally different generation of people, and
Right.
so they were kind of hung up on the sex thing. And of course, Freud saw a lot of middle-aged women who didn't really like their husbands very much. It's just old. And so he heard a lot of stuff that was very Victorian, and he came up with his theories. And the sexual theory kind of turned out to be a little bit of a it was bunk. It was no good. And Freud knew it, and so he broke from him, but he paid the price professionally and was kind of ostracized for a number
Mm-hmm.
of years until after the World War II. At which point Jung became kind of got brought back into the fold, and they founded analytical psychology
Oh.
and began to say, look, man, we love Freud and his unconscious stuff, but we want to take it a step further. We want to give the unconscious its due. We think that there's more in the unconscious than there is in the conscious, that we are just an ego kind of floating on the water, to use a metaphor. And we've got some oars and we've got a little bit of agency, but most of what's going on within us is inside. And if you want to become a whole person, you need to unite with the rest of that whole ocean, or at least as much of it as you can come into contact with. And so Jung's theories on the collective unconscious and his active imagination theories and the various techniques that he used were he published those during that time. And if you want to, I can talk about the seven sermons of the dead and so forth and put it into context for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Before you do that, however, there was this famous incident where the two of them met. I believe it was at Freud's residence. This is some years into the relationship because it essentially was the final nail in the coffin. I think
Hmm.
uh, for all time, if I'm mistaken. After he'd been brought back into the fold, as you put it, and they'd
Hmm.
maybe worked together in developing analytical
Hmm.
psychology, I guess
Hmm.
is it known. So they were sitting there in his library, and there's a heated the tone of the conversation was becoming more heated, and Jung said something about, you watch, there's something is going to happen here with the
Hmm.
energy. And I'm not sure if he said a book is going to fly off the shelf or not, but that's exactly what happened. And it kind of jolted Freud where to the point where he
Yeah.
was like, what just happened here? This is a little
Right.
odd, like to say the least. I think it
Yeah, it scared the hell out of him.
yeah,
Yeah, he did. It scared the
and
hell out of
then
him.
it just the things carried on for a short time after, and he said Young said it's going to happen again, and apparently it did. So the
Yeah,
story goes. Can
yeah.
you flesh that out a little more, perhaps? Do you know more
So,
of the details,
Jung
or?
was from a family. Jung has talked about his family, and there were some mediums and occult people in his family, and so it kind of ran in the family. This highly intuitive nature, people who are kind of in touch with synchronicity and very highly intuitive people like this. And of course, he was very bright as well, and so um, this sort of thing happened to the people in his family all the time. And of course, Jung was a perfect balance of highly intuitive and extremely intelligent. And he just knew things were going to happen. And his perspective on what happened there with predicting that something was going to break was that he felt it. He was a little bit like a guy that has ESP. He just knew things were going to happen because he had been doing this his whole life, and so had people in his family. So it ran in the family. Freud was kind of freaked out about it because Freud was more in the rational cerebral cortex realm, and Freud was, but Jung was a little bit more divided between the two. He was guided from within. In fact, the Red Book, Liber Novus, that was published after he died, was part of that Seven Sermons of the Dead that kind of foretold all the things that Jung was going to talk about in his professional life. The event that happened that you're describing was that he just felt that something was going to break, and I think it was an oak table split. And he said, "There's something's going to happen," and sure as hell, the oak table split. This 200-year-old piece of wood, and he just felt the vibrations. He's one of those guys that could feel the vibrations,
Hmm.
and I can't do it, but he could.
Johnny Cash could as well,
Yeah, I
apparently.
heard about that. Yeah, Johnny Cash is an interesting guy.
Yeah.
I think it
S-
ran in his family as well, because the Cashes are a pretty talented family.
hmm Well, and as you said, I think the attuned. I think you used that term, did you not? Or that's it's essentially it's compatible with what you were unpacking there, and that's really where it's at, most definitely. It's like, it's really interesting. The what I refer to, hopefully this is not too far off the mark, but the perennial philosophy, perennial tradition, and 900 years of Greco-Buddhism as well, which a lot of
Mhm,
people don't know about, and then one of the, as I see it, the height of which was Christ himself,
mhm,
and then the kind of waters got muddied by the politics, unfortunately.
yeah,
But you can still see it's like, wait a minute, there's gold there,
there's a lot of gold
there's
there.
gold there, just
Um,
But so,
yeah,
go ahead.
that's a very powerful idea, and I was wondering hoping that you would mention that because I remember sending you notes earlier about the Christ within, and, I don't know, you guys are kind of rebels and pirates, so I'll just throw this out there, and this is something that you see even in just little memes that on the internet in some of the groups that I'm in, but the Christ within, poor Christ and all of these other prophets have been trying to get you to find the Christ within, and the book that I wrote is trying to do that from the inner beloved, trying to make a connection and find the wholeness, right? The Tao Te Ching, find the synchronicity, find the wholeness or the authenticity. And so the Christ within is what they were trying to get you. Muhammad was trying to do this. Jesus Christ was trying to do this. A lot of other prophets that are forgotten or not remembered have been trying to get you to go within and find your own Christ. But most, of course, we know that that's not what is really preached. What is preached is the God in the sky, and they forget about the course the God within. And Jung is on record as saying, well, I can't prove that there's aliens, and I can't prove that there's a God in the sky, but I can definitely prove that people have experiences from the God within. And so that's the message that most theologians, if you talk to somebody who's been through the seminary, they'll tell you that the search for the God within is really what Jesus was preaching. And it's written in metaphor and stories because it's hard to talk about this stuff, but it's very much what he was trying to say.
I know, I remember now where I was going, trying to take this ultimately. So
Yeah.
thank you for laying that out there. Attunement, at
Mhm.
one ment, and in the
At one
perennial
minute. Yeah.
tradition, you find the same story or analogy, if you will, not really a parable, but just an illustration.
Hmm.
Socrates, who preceded, no, Buddha, who preceded Socrates, was
Correct.
first approached by a musician, how is it that we achieve enlightenment? And the Buddha
Right.
replied, well, you're a musician, you should know, your string
Yeah.
is too loose. How does it sound? It's
Hmm.
wobbly. It's all, it's
Hmm.
not pleasurable to the ear. you
Yeah.
you you wind it too tight, make it too sharp, and it ultimately it will break if you go too far. So what do you
Right.
want to seek and try to strive to achieve, is the middle way. It's where you
Middle
get
way.
this some sort of golden mean, or whatever it is, with the
Hmm.
way, there's talk of like A440 or 432 and that whole
Uh-huh.
business, but it is what it is. And each planet apparently has its own resonance too. It's kind of how the story goes. But what
Yeah.
happened, though, that same situation occurred a couple hundred years later with Socrates. He was approached by a musician
Yeah.
and asked the same question, and Socrates gave the exact same response.
I'll be damned.
So there's something going on there within, as I say, you call it the perennial philosophy, the 900 years of Greco-Buddhism. For anyone
Hmm.
that wants to look into it, it's to me, it's really profound, the syncretic back and forth of what was taking place there through across the Silk Roads, even as far as all the way here, not only to Korea but ultimately Japan, is what
Yeah.
I've been able to trace things true to as far as that the influence.
Well, thank you for yeah, I feel like I'm a student listening to and
Ah,
learning. I'm gonna have to look into that a
the
little bit more.
Vikings. That's one that'll really maybe blow your mind. Is they had their own the Silk Roads too. They served as a special elite guard to the
Mhm.
I guess emperor of Constantinople, and so
Yeah.
there was well established trade routes running to the northwest as well, to Scandinavia
You
and
know,
Europe.
I know it. Now you've given me now I can kick the ball back over the net at you because
Huh.
you've finally given me the idea. I was thinking about this earlier because you're really interested in the Greco stuff and
Mm-hmm.
the Romans and there was an old I think it's the Byzantine version of Christianity and the Gnostic version of the Bible, which is kind of the Book of Thomas and these various other unpublished versions the Catholic Church decided not to publish. It's very interesting stuff. And a lot of people who are in Jungian stuff or in Eastern meditation look into this sort of thing, and they see that the Book of Thomas, it's it's a little it's highly fictional, it's highly imaginative, it's not literal. But because it's not literal, it's more like Gnostic. It's the Gnostic stuff that Jung was really into later in his life. And those sorts of things were part of the ancient tradition of Christianity before the Roman Catholic Church kind of took the Bible and made it what it is today. There are some of different traditions and different versions of the Bible that are, I would say, more like Carl Jung stuff than anything else. And it's the pathway to the soul, and it's not literal. It's definitely figurative. I can understand why they took it out of the Bible because it doesn't appeal to the mathematicians and the lawyers and the doctors and so forth, but it's definitely a path to the soul. It's stories to help you find the path within.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very Taoist as well too. If is the way I kind
Mhm.
of look at that book of the Gospel of Thomas. And do not confuse the finger pointing for the moon is how the Buddha put it.
Oh, yeah.
And I had that presented to me back in my university days by an old uh, creative writing instructor.
Yeah.
So he was into the whole Zen thing, and it the way it's so many people get hung up on language, just words, and what are
Mhm.
words? Where are these words exactly? And what is the purpose? And
Yeah.
I
Where'd you go
mean,
to school?
uh, well, I mean, school of hard knocks, man. So hey, right, pirates. What do you expect? But no, university, post secondary, Vancouver Island,
Nice.
Victoria,
Beautiful.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
Nanaimo. Yeah, it was just I reflect on those. It's crazy the way time just and life just flashes
Yeah.
by. So, hey, speaking of
Yeah.
which, one of the NDEs. I don't know if Young got into this at all. Actually, he did have a near-death experience too. By God,
I think he did. He had a heart
yeah,
attack. Yes.
yeah. But just your spirit guide, Uncle
Mhm.
Max, as an example.
Yep.
And because I've been getting to NDEs as of late, and it's really like we're being given. We're so fortunate to be living in the time and the age where we are because there's so much like spiritually or from the consciously that is being made available to us if only we if we spend less time maybe focused on other more mundane or worldly things.
Mhm.
But people who come back with these testimonies of
Yes.
having been like they were medically
Yeah.
dead for a whole
Young
and a
wrote
period of
about it.
time. It's crazy.
He was very measured, and he understood that people didn't take him seriously, and so he was very measured. He said, "Just like the UFOs, just like, the aliens, just like some of the other things that he talks about, you don't know if they're real, if the NDE is a real thing or not, but he says it's a real experience, and it influences people profoundly. Just like, if you suddenly go up the top of the mountain and become enlightened, it's a very powerful experience to have an NDE, and, it does and he had a powerful one too, and he began to realize he kind of, as he was getting older, I haven't been there yet. I haven't got that old yet, but I do understand that he just kind of started seeing the real world the way it really is, and how you're only here for a moment, and you better go for it while you're alive, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's my take on the NDEs, is that they're profoundly transforming.
Yeah. If you get a chance, that maybe, and some people claim to meet Christ.
Yeah,
Nobody's seen, not too many people meet Buddha, I guess. It's interesting. And the
I don't know.
well, in the response to that, what I've heard from some people who've investigated or have some knowledge in this whole area is because he's gone. Like, that was the whole point. Buddha has,
Oh, he's gone.
well,
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Uh-huh.
he's liberated himself from the wheel of rebirth. That's the whole point.
Right.
First of all, we make friends with ourselves, as you talk
Correct.
about in your book, which is a kind of yoga, really, I guess, like yoking. Christ talked about that yoke too, didn't he? Yoking
Yes,
our
he talked a lot about that kind of stuff.
his and he said, follow is my yoga, it's light, it's easy, something like that. Like, what is the
Mhm.
Aramaic anyways? Because as I
Yeah, they've
oh,
had to go back and retranslate that from the original Aramaic, because the problem is that different languages use different genders, and
yeah.
they had a woman, translator retranslate the whole thing, and it doesn't sound as patrilineal as it did, and she said, "Well, this is really not, it's not as what you think it is. It doesn't read like the Bible of today." And so there's different translations that are very interesting, that kind of help you get an insight into the way that, because people think the way they speak, and Aramaic was a language, and it was real, and the way that people thought back in those days, you try to, it's hard to reproduce, but it's very interesting, to read different translations of the Bible, and see what you
Yeah.
can learn.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, it gets misinterpreted as, the God is out there, the God is in the sky. But what Christ was talking about was God is within you. And so if you take them as stories, and you whole thing is interpreted as a story and a symbol of what's going on, that is more accurate than trying to be literal minded about the whole thing.
Absolutely. That wasn't Elaine Pagels, the female.
I don't remember names very well, but if you say it's Elaine Pagel in it, that's probably fine.
Yeah, or well, another name for you then, because you don't remember them very well. Just to be a jerk, I guess. But Bart Ehrman, of course. Come on,
Who's that?
Bart. Oh, come on, Bart. You've
I'm
never heard
sorry,
of
I
Bart
didn't hear.
Ehrman?
Herman. Oh, okay. I'll
Bart
look him
or
up.
Bart? Yeah, look him up. Oh no, yeah, via the
Cool.
YouTube. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Man, I
kind of.
mean, when I was doing research for this book, I must have run across 30 or 40 names that I never heard of before, until you
Hmm.
never know what you're going to learn when you get into a book. And of course, not everybody's written a book, but it really, if you're going to be serious about it, because it's got APA references in it, and it's researched, heavily researched, but it's very accessible language.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to walk that tightrope of making it very easy to read, but very accurate. And I
Mm.
ran across all kinds of interesting books that I would read through, or summaries of them, and try to learn these things. And I didn't run across that particular name, but I'll tell you, I'm learning all these interesting people, and all these conversations I have with folks like you.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I learn at least as much from you as you do from me. It's fascinating.
My kids teach me so much, and
Yeah.
these are children, of course, and I say, like, even I listen, the birds, nature, the wind. I
Mhm.
stubbing my toe, that's a good teacher. People around me dying, it's like, oh, this, speaking
Yeah,
of
that'll teach you something.
hurry up, get on with it. Like, what is your, they say, who is it, maybe it was Young, that there's the two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you finally realized why it was you were born.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
that's, the chapter on the path, finding your path, is
uh-huh.
I talk a lot about that kind of thing in there, because, your path is something that's hard to define, and it's a thing that intuitive people understand, but it's the place that you are when you're asleep. You're on your path, and you have these various messages that get sent to you, and it paints a picture. It's not a very specific picture, but it's definitely, a path is a place that you are inside of your head. And strangely enough, we are all walking that path. And so the outside world is kind of incidental. This is where you eat, and you have your family, You live in your house, you do your job, and all these things. But the path that's within you is the thing that drives you. And so, if you want to if you put good things into yourself, and you cultivate the path that you're on, and you walk it with authenticity, the outer path kind of takes care of itself.
Mm-hmm. You talked about, I think you mentioned the mind. Let's not forget the heart.
Absolutely.
That's, that's I'm endlessly fascinated with the ancient Egyptians, how it was, I guess, that they, with embalming people, apparently they would extract all of the brain content through the nostrils. They had a
Hmm.
special tool to do this, I guess. And then there was the heart was treated with total reverence. And I'm not
Hmm.
sure, I think they might have preserved it, wrapped it, and preserved it in honey, perhaps.
I think
As-
yeah, the Egyptians, I think, did that. Yeah.
yeah. So, well, a couple final things here as we wind down. Then, Scott, is the well, inner alchemy. I don't think I touched on that. That was something I was going to bring up, but also the dialectic, as you referenced earlier. You're familiar with the image of the Tao and this goes
Hmm.
back to the pre-Socratics, and it's something I've yet to get my head wrapped around. Maybe you can shed
Hmm.
some light on this, but there were two I don't want to say opposite or intermingling dialectics that were at play, these schools of thought. One
Hmm.
with the pre-Socratics, one that had the uh, mutually exclusive yin and yang, so
Hmm.
that there was no black within the white, no white within the black, and then the
Right.
other where there was the dot, the dot of
Right.
white in the black and the dot of black in the white. And let's not
Hmm.
forget that technocracy. I don't know if you've ever seen the technocracy, the way their dialectical logo, or the
I think I've
whatever.
run across it a couple
Yeah,
times.
you know what? It's red and white, I guess, and it's mutually exclusive. It's just red
Oh, is
and
it? Yeah,
white. So that's it for those with
that's
eyes to
interesting.
see. Let's, what to make of that. But just can you, going back to the pre-Socratics, the context of that, and these two kind of competing
So,
dialectics. Yeah.
I'm reading the Tao of Psychology by Dr. Bolin. It's the synchronicity of the soul,
Mm-hmm.
and she talks about what she's a Jungian analyst, and so she was trained back in the 50s and 60s, and sees these patients come in, and she says there's only two kinds of patients that I see: the ones that are open to this sort of thing, and the ones that are closed. And the ones that are close to it are very rational. They're not very intuitive. They don't feel the frequencies the way that we've been talking about it, and they're not as highly intuitive. And so it's hard for them to accept these sort of things. And for people like that, you're going to have the separation of the two, so the white and the black, or the white and the red, and there's not going to be a lot of overlap between the two. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult for people like that to accept. And then you've got the more intuitive types who are kind of into the vibrations. They're feeling it. They're the kind of the Einsteins and the Carl Jungs of the world. And and of course, the more that the little white dot is in the black part and the little black dot is in the white part, or red, that's an indication of more intuitive stuff. And of course, the red and the black, the red, I think, is the part that you were talking about. That's the heart. It could also be anger, because colors are subjective, but I feel like the red could be talked about as the heart rather than the mind. So, and it's a very interesting discussion. I haven't delved into it maybe as deep as you have, but that's what Dr. Bolen was thinking when she talked about the different kinds of people who experience or do not experience the Tao and synchronicity.
I think you managed to put your finger on it there, as far as the within the pre-Socratic context of the two competing uh, dialectics. With the technocratic end of things, though,
Yeah.
you know, red is in the heart, and white maybe more intellectual or rational,
I'm not
perhaps.
sure. Yeah, I'm not
But
sure.
also maybe look at the Russian Revolution.
Mm.
The reds and the whites
Yeah, different
potentially.
colors mean different things to different people. It's
Mm,
just like numerology. It's kind of it takes your take your
subjective.
pick, but different people mean different things. It
Yeah.
just depends on the
Let's
individual.
let's
Yeah.
give a shout out here to Christian Laterre, Jesus
Hey, Chris.
Camara. Have you met Chris?
No, but I
Oh,
I love how many mutual friends that you have between you. My goodness.
yeah. Actually, we cannot. Yeah, we actually, speaking of which, we cannot yet friend you. The Facebook is blocking us from doing that. So you
No.
might want to, if you're, if we haven't
It'll be my
totally.
personal page. I can friend you on my
Yeah.
personal page.
So Jesus Gamera Farfan, Dinah Valencia, Michael Haran, Laura Smith, Paul
Mhm.
Askoff, and Charlotte Pendragon. I'm not
Wow.
sure if you're a fan of magic or not, but that is the Charlotte Pendragon, formerly
Look at
of
that.
the
Yeah, that's great.
Pendragons. She's a stage
So you clicked on
magician.
add friend and it didn't let you do it, huh?
No,
That's too bad.
no. Uh,
Well, I don't
mhm, Go ahead.
we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Vidali Lotus, we had her on just a couple weeks ago. She's great, out of
Oh,
Mobile,
great.
Alabama. She's a very serious Buddhist
Yeah.
practitioner.
Well, I know they're not listening live, but when you hear this, guys, hi. Scott says hi, and I look
Yeah.
forward to meeting you up. I'll take a look at this at the end of the video and try to find you guys out there, and we'll get you
Hmm.
invited to the Creative Bridge.
And excellent. And Robert Morningstar too. If we can arrange something there, I think
That'd be
both of you
great.
would be
Yeah.
really have some great chemistry and synergy. As it were, along with Yvon Malfont out of Vancouver. He's a
Hmm.
longtime friend and
You have some
counselor.
pretty interesting friends.
Sure, sure. Min Miney Bilge, she's a supporter of the show. Vincent Nunez, he's Vinny from
Mhm.
Brooklyn, and of course yourself, along with finally Jorg Sanchez, all engaging us. I think we picked up somebody new just as we're live streaming here too. So,
Yeah.
but
Oh, did we start live streaming? Oh,
oh,
cool.
no, 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 no. As for, well, you and I, we're
Yeah, yeah.
we're
Oh,
live streaming, but anyways, so
that's
whoops, there
awesome.
there we go. So I think I think that about does it. We've run the gamut here, and is there anything that we
Sure.
we missed out on? We've got your
Well, I'll tell
social
you, if we
media
missed out on
links.
anything, I'm happy to come back and talk about it again. I love talking about this sort of thing, and if we start corresponding through Messenger or whatever, and you want to talk again, or you want to have me and Morningstar on to talk about things, I would love to. It sounds like fun. You've got some pretty interesting people out there that might be a lot of fun to talk to. So
Yeah, Robert's
I'm
out
game.
of Manhattan, New York, actually,
Yeah.
longtime resident of New York, and um, I would love to just, if possible, because I have co-hosted with him in the past, and we've been
Yeah.
kind of struggling to reconnect here. Had some technical issues in the new year. He switched over to Discord, and there's just a
Oh,
whole.
right,
So
right.
we're on the verge, I think, finally of making this happen. But he has a large live streaming audience. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about that, and you'd be able to reach a good number
Yeah,
of
well,
people that
yeah,
way.
reach out and let him know about me and I've had a real good time and you just had a lot of interesting questions and I feel like you know more than you think you know and
Ah.
I learned a lot listening to you. I think you asked some really great
Well,
questions and
well,
you gave me some good things to think about.
and you know ditto, obviously. So it's how would Young put that exactly, the interplay, the dialogue between two.
Well, it's chemistry or alchemy. Yeah, the two souls they interact together, and if it's really strong, they never are never the same again. You change one another through the alchemy of the two personalities. It's transference and countertransference. Yeah, it's very powerful.
Samskaras is the Sanskrit term, or
Samskara,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm not sure if you know exactly. I'm not sure if you know
No.
about the history of the influence that Sanskrit had on English, but I'm finding that what went to the West through Sanskrit and India came here as well to
Mhm.
Korea and made an influence. made an
Yeah,
impact. So I'm not going to get into it right now, but we've
that's all
teased
right.
listeners with that in the past.
Yeah.
And
One of my best friends that's taking care of our cats right now, is Daniel Lee from Seoul, South Korea. So, hi, Daniel. Hope you enjoy this.
you're a cat lover. We got 3 kitties here as well. You got 2 Bengals, is that right?
2 Bengal kitties, yeah. One of them looks like a leopard, and then the other one doesn't.
Are they brother and sister or?
They're from, 2 different litters, and they're about 2 months apart from each other, so I think they're about 7 years old now, and they're a real loving kitty cats. Yeah, we love those.
Are they going to be reproducing or?
No, sadly, no, but we do love them a lot, and,
Sure. Yeah.
so they're
Yeah.
great. We're
Excellent.
cat people, the 2 of us.
Good.
We don't mind the
Yeah.
dogs, but we do love cats.
Well, as I like to talk, remind the wife of here that you just never know if you bring into the picture. And that's another thing. I don't know. Did Jung with reincarnation? He must have been a believer. I'm almost
He
certain.
he's in his autobiography, he kind of steps back from that. He says, "After I had my heart attack, I wasn't as sure about that sort of thing." He was really not he
Huh.
wasn't willing to come out and say yes or no. He says, "I would like to believe it, but because it's such a wish fulfillment thing," he says, "maybe it's just something that I need to believe.
Well,
Whether it's real or not is probably not important."
well, and you know what? What's interesting about the whole thing is the way I look at it. We're here now.
Yes, we are. Yes, we
Whatever form,
are.
we're here
It's been
now.
a wonderful
Yes,
conversation.
and now we're off. You have a great weekend. If you run into Alice out there at any point, send him our regards. We'd love to talk to
I
him.
will.
And
He will say, "What are you talking about?"
yeah, yeah. Oh man. So we'll definitely be. We got to send you the archived end of things here as soon as
Yeah, I wanna have a
possible, and
link for sure, yeah,
just share
yeah,
it with your friends via social media
yeah.
and
Thanks a
well,
lot.
yeah. Okay. Well, all the best as they say. Oh, here comes Danny, right on time. He's the one guy, our special needs cat. He lost his leg. He was Yes,
Yeah,
Danny, come on.
so
He
cute.
got hit by
Can
a
you bring him up?
car,
Oh, yeah.
and he's very
There we
he's very
go.
hey Danny, he's
Kitty.
very sensitive. Special needs kitty, but we adopted him from the vet, and
Sure.
the vet recently passed away. Actually, I was
Yeah,
shocked to find this out because he wasn't that old, but it really kind of it's a wake up call to all of us that
yeah,
it's all around us that
it
we're here to
is.
go.
Well
We're not just it's not
well,
permanent.
blessings to you and your kitty cat and your whole family. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a
As
pleasure.
yourself as well. Songbul haseo, as they say here in
Alright.
Korea. Peace out.
Namaste.
Oh, there you go. Okay. God bless. Good night.
Good night.
Why have we been muted out here exactly? I don't know. Apologies, folks. We'll have to edit that. Oh boy. We're gonna have to move this over to Linux. We were on a roll there too. I'm not even sure where we cut out or why that happened. It sometimes does that here on OBS, and I don't know why. Really couldn't tell you why. So apologies, but we were just kind of winding down, wrapping things up here. Thanking Scott, of course, for his time and everything that he had to contribute. And the fact that, once again, for those who didn't hear it the first time around, I'm not the sort of person who's able to deal with compliments all that well. And I guess, a real skill in itself, how to do so graciously and sincerely. So for me, it's uh, I get too embarrassed too easily, and sense just feeling that I am not worthy. So, but there you go. Be that as it may, heck of an interview once again, and hope that everyone will have found something that they're able to benefit from, and maybe even share with others, of course. In which case, if this or any other show that we've done, you find is to your liking, or helps you to any extent, not only like, comment, share. Remember to hit subscription notification buttons, but do consider giving us a bit of a boost via the PayPal end of things, pirate1radio@protonmail.com. That's our email address. Also, if you have show suggestions or guest ideas, that's a way to do things. And remember, the website is always, of course, WPRPN.com. Are we going to be back with news at any point here along the way? I don't know. We're doing a lot of street busking as of late. It is that time of year. So not only are we having to throw ourselves into work in the real world, stepping away from the mic and taking a little more time to rest and recuperate, but do what we can to reach out to people and maybe make their lives a little more joyous, perhaps, or in some way, offer to them the gift of song. Ultimately, I suppose, is what it boils down to. Something that Scott knows a whole deal about. We didn't get too much into his musical productions, that the creative part of his life. Perhaps we could next time. It'll be interesting to see if the whole Robert Morningstar end of what we proposed works out. I think it would really be quite something. They would go a lot deeper, I can tell you that much, than what we managed to hear, mostly because Robert's grasp on and knowledge of Jung really runs quite deep. It's quite profound. He studied the man and his work for far many more years than I have. So, all right, folks, you yourselves as well, have a great weekend, and keep an eye out for us, of course, when it is that we will return. No clear idea exactly, but we've got guests in the queue. We could actually give a quick look at what we have booked. I think, let's see, the 14th. Oh my God, we got Pirate Larry Jr. coming up on the 21st, along with a number of others who we're hoping to work into the scheduling end of things. Folks we've been in touch with here behind the scenes, and pretty much providing a feature show, Friday night feature show. Actually, now it's a Saturday night feature show, isn't it? New work schedule once every 2 weeks. So, but there we go. It's a done deal. On behalf of Captain Long John St. Clair and all the rest of the crew here down in Skullport Harbor, until we meet again via these high, often all too intrepid digital seas, I'm your host, as always, Robin Hood's Chief Communications Officer, Jeffrey Ryder, reminding you to keep your ear to the ground and eyes to the sky. Tally-ho!
I know. There we be. Having carefully looked over each of our navigation panel instruments,
checking every level, switch, dial, cable, knob, and pulley, by all accounts and indications, we indeed see it's time, once again, to drop anchor inside Mystic Bay.
Draw an end to yet another week of World Pirate Radio Live.
Remember,
if you're looking for a little more animated online action,
keep in mind we've likely got yet another great free-flowing Rogues Gallery after show
coming up for the next hour in one of our more premium, exclusive, and remote digital underground online pirate hideaways. Also, if you yourself have a new,
novel, intriguing, or otherwise underreported idea, unique individual, or pressing item in mind, be sure to either drop us a line directly over on WPRPN.com or fire us a quick email
via Pirate One Radio at protonmail.com.
We're always open to exploring fresh creative suggestions, intriguing guest ideas, cutting-edge discussion topics, and captivating themes.
Remember, WPRPN.com member site subdomain links are also always available.
Great for artists, musicians, podcasters, bloggers, social media personalities,
or pretty much just any old landlubber
looking to boost their online visibility, presence, and reach.
Basic personal profile accounts can be launched for just $60 per year.
Staking your claim now helps not only strengthen you and the network, we're also looking out for the little guy. That's right, folks. As much as half of all WPRPN's profits are redirected right back into the hands of the people who really need it most. Community charity. After all, we are the Robin Hood.
You can further embark on your own personal pirate journey by either liking, sharing,
commenting on, subscribing to, or just following us via virtually any mainstream social media platform, including Twitter, Facebook,
Gab,
or Minds.com. So don't forget to become engaged. Until we meet again out on the high digital seas, I'm your host as always, the ship's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. Tally-ho.